Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a true icon, something almost mythical in aviation.
Yeah.
The B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Yeah, it's really more than just a plane. It's become the symbol of incredible engineering, strategic power. It really redefined things. So we're going to do a deep dive into the B-2. We'll trace its very secretive origins, look at its amazing capabilities, how it actually performed in combat, and importantly, where it fits now and in the future of air power.
Right. And our goal here is simple: help you quickly get why this flying wing is just so unique, so powerful strategically. We'll peel back the layers. We're looking at its design, which is revolutionary, its combat history, and what it all means for global defense. Our sources cover, the tech, the operations, the future, the whole picture.
Okay, let's dive in. The first thing you notice is just the look of it. That flying wing, it still looks futuristic decades later. So let's unpack that. Why does it look like that? What was the driving force behind such a radical design?
Well, it all comes down to stealth.
Yeah.
Invisibility, or, getting as close as possible. This goes back to the late 1970s, a highly classified program called the Advanced Technology Bomber, or ATB.
ATB, right.
The big problem then was the Soviet Union. Their air defenses were getting incredibly sophisticated, really effective against traditional bombers.
So the mission was basically sneak past them.
Exactly. They needed a long-range bomber carrying a heavy payload that could get through those dense defenses completely undetected. And that challenge, that absolute need, led directly to this extreme focus on stealth technology.
Okay, so stealth becomes the absolute priority. Northrop Grumman gets the contract, first flight's in '89.
Yeah.
How did they actually do it? How do you make something so huge just disappear, practically?
It's really a combination of things, not just one silver bullet. The core principle is reducing its radar cross-section, the RCS.
How it shows up on radar screens?
Precisely. The flying wing shape itself is key. See, it gets rid of the usual vertical tail fins, the distinct body and wings. Those things create sharp angles that bounce radar signals right back to the receiver.
Like a mirror.
Kind of, yeah. The B-2's surfaces are smooth, blended. They scatter radar energy in all directions, making it really hard to get a strong, clear return signal.
And there's more to it than just the shape.
Oh, definitely. The skin is coated in special radar absorbent materials, RAM. Think of it like acoustic foam in a studio, but for radar waves. It literally absorbs the energy instead of reflecting it.
Okay, fascinating. So that tackles radar. But planes can be detected in other ways. Heat, sound.
Absolutely, they thought of that too. For infrared or heat signature, the exhaust from its 4 engines, big General Electric engines, is mixed with cool outside air. Then it's vented out over the trailing end of the wing, dispersing the heat, making it much harder for heat-seeking missiles or IR sensors to lock on.
Clever. And sound. It's a big aircraft.
It is, but the wing shape itself actually helps dampen the sound naturally. Plus, the engines are buried deep inside the airframe, which muffles the noise significantly compared to, say, engines slung under the wings.
And visually, I guess it mainly flies at night.
Primarily, yes. And its dark, non-reflective paint scheme is optimized for that. Makes it incredibly hard to spot visually against a dark sky.
Okay, let's get a sense of scale here. We keep saying huge, massive. How big is it really?
We're talking a wingspan of 172 feet. That's, over 52 meters? It's wider than it is long.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 69 feet long, about 21 meters, and stands 17 feet high. And the weight, maximum takeoff weight, can be over 336,000 pounds. That's immense.
A flying wing that big, designed to be invisible, it's still hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. And that combination, the stealth, the sheer size, the design philosophy, lets it do its job. A long-range, multi-role, heavy bomber, its main mission profile, penetrate the toughest air defenses, hit critical targets right at the start of a conflict, be the first one in.
And heavy bomber means it carries a serious punch. What's the payload like?
Oh, enormous. Up to 40,000 pounds of weapons in 2 internal bomb bays.
40,000 pounds. What does that look like in terms of actual bombs?
Well, you could load it with, say, 80 of the 500-pound JDAMs, those are GPS-guided bombs, or 16 of the much bigger 2,000-pound JDAMs.
Yeah, so a lot of precision firepower.
A huge amount. And crucially, it's certified for nuclear weapons. That makes it a vital part of the U.S. nuclear triad. You know, the bombers, land-based missiles, and submarine missiles, deterrence.
Right, the strategic role.
Yeah.
And its reach. How far can it go?
That's another key feature. Unrefueled, its combat range is around 6,000 nautical miles. That's over 11,000 kilometers.
That's already impressive.
But with just one aerial refueling, which is designed for, that range jumps to over 10,000 nautical miles, or 18,500 kilometers.
So basically global reach from its home base.
Pretty much. It allows for intercontinental strikes, launch from Missouri, hit a target almost anywhere, and potentially return, all in one mission.
And it flies high too, right? Up around 50,000 feet.
Yeah, typically. High altitude gives its sensors a better view, plus it's more fuel efficient up there.
And remarkably, for such a complex machine, the crew is just 2 pilots. That's a huge difference from older bombers like the B-52 that needed, what, 5 or 6 crew members?
A massive difference. Just 2 pilots. That simplifies training, reduces workload in some ways, although the systems they manage are incredibly complex.
So if we pull all that together, the stealth, the range, the payload, the small crew, what does that give the Air Force strategically?
It gives them the ability to hold any target on Earth at risk, essentially, even targets deep inside heavily defended airspace. It allows for surgical strikes, taking out critical command centers, air defenses, high-value assets, with minimal risk to the aircraft and crew because it avoids detection. It fundamentally changed the game in that sense.
Okay, so that's the theory, the design capability. How is it actually performed in the real world when things got serious?
Its combat debut was Operation Allied Force over Kosovo in 1999. And this was really remarkable. B-2s flew these incredibly long missions, like 30 hours round trip, all the way from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, hit targets in Yugoslavia, and flew back. Nonstop, with refueling, of course.
30 hours, wow.
Yeah. And in the first 8 weeks of that campaign, they dropped something like 30% of the bombs. Their ability to get past Yugoslav air defenses undetected was absolutely crucial, especially early on.
So it proved its worth right out of the gate. What about later conflicts? Well, Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom in 2001, B-2s were right there at the beginning, among the first aircraft hitting Taliban and al-Qaeda targets. Again, likely flying those super long missions, maybe staging from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean too.
That's generally understood, yes. Operating from Whiteman and forward location.
Yeah.
Then Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, same story. Long-range strikes against key strategic targets at the very start of the air campaign.
And it didn't stop there. Libya, Operation Odyssey Dawn in 2011.
Yep, involved there too, hitting airfields, missile sites, and even more recently, 2017, striking ISIS training camps in Syria.
I remember reading about that one. Another marathon mission.
An incredible one. 2 B-2s flew a 34-hour round trip, again from Whiteman, and delivered over 100 precision bombs. Just 2 planes.
That really underscores the capability. Long-range, stealth, precision.
Exactly. These operations, time and again, they just demonstrate what the B-2 brings to the table. It's not theoretical, it's combat-proven against real-world threats. It cemented its role as a critical strategic asset.
Okay, let's talk about the fleet itself then. You'd think with this kind of capability they'd want hundreds. But the original plan for 132 got cut way down.
Massively cut. Only 21 were ever built. And after one was lost in a crash on takeoff in Guam back in 2008, thankfully the crew ejected safely. We're down to 20 active B-2s.
20. That's a very small number for such a key aircraft. Why so few?
2 main reasons, really. First, the strategic landscape changed dramatically. The Soviet Union collapsed in the early 90s, right when the B-2 was coming online. The primary threat it was designed for essentially disappeared.
The end of the Cold War.
Right. And second, the cost. The program cost just kept escalating. It became politically difficult to justify building a large fleet, especially without the looming Soviet threat.
So it became this incredibly capable, but also incredibly expensive and therefore rare asset.
Exactly. Each one is hugely valuable, and that small fleet size also means they're very maintenance intensive. You can't just have a few out of service. It really impacts availability. Those stealth coatings, the complex systems, they require a lot of care.
Where are these 20 aircraft based? Do they all live in one place?
Their permanent home is Whiteman Air Force Base out in Missouri. That's the 509th Bomb Wing.
The same unit that dropped the atomic bombs of World War II, right?
That's the one. A lot of history there. But while Whiteman is home base, they rely on forward operating locations to project power globally. Key spots are Anderson Air Force Base in Guam, Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, and RAF Fairford in the UK. These let them deploy closer to potential hotspots.
So when we hear news reports about B-2s deploying to, say, the Middle East or Europe,
It usually means they're operating temporarily from one of those forward bases, yeah. It's about presence, deterrence, and being ready, not necessarily that they're actively bombing in a new conflict zone unless specified.
got it. Now, the cost, we touched on it, but just how expensive are we talking? It has this reputation as maybe the most expensive plane ever built.
It's certainly up there. The figures vary a bit depending on how you calculate it, but back in 1997 dollars, the average cost per aircraft was cited as over $737 million.
Almost $750 million back then.
Right. But if you factor in the total program cost development, R&D, spare parts, support infrastructure, it pushes the effective cost per plane well over $2 billion, maybe even higher in today's money.
$2 billion
Ugh.
per plane. That's staggering.
It is. And the operational costs are also extremely high. That maintenance we mentioned, especially keeping the stealth coatings pristine, takes a huge amount of time and money.
So that cost, the small fleet size. What are the main challenges facing the B-2 fleet today?
Well, the maintenance intensity is a big one. Those stealth materials are delicate. They need climate-controlled hangars, constant inspection and repair. It limits how often and how quickly they can fly.
Makes sense.
Then there's the fact that despite upgrades, it's an aging fleet. They first flew in the late 80s. Avionics systems can be updated, but the airframes themselves age. Things wear out.
And the limited numbers, as you said. Losing even one or having several down for deep maintenance really impacts the force.
Absolutely. There's just not much redundancy. If force is a very careful, deliberate approach to how they're used, you don't risk a B-2 lightly.
So with these challenges, mounting age, maintenance, numbers, what's the long-term plan? We still have the B-52, the old workhorse, plugging away.
Right. And the B-52 is incredible in its own right. Not stealthy, obviously, but it carries huge load, can launch long-range cruise missiles, and it's relatively cheaper to operate. It's expected to fly for decades more, maybe even hit 100 years of service.
Unbelievable. But it's not a stealth penetrator like the B-2. What's coming next to fill that role?
That would be the B-21 Raider. It's currently in development and flight testing by Northrop Grumman again.
The Raider. What's the idea behind it? Is it just a better B-2?
It's designed to be the next generation of stealth bomber. Even stealthier than the B-2, more adaptable with open systems architecture, easier to upgrade, and critically, a major focus is on making it more maintainable and affordable to operate than the B-2, learning lessons from the Spirit's challenges.
So lower operational costs is a key design goal.
A very key goal. The plan is for the B-21 to eventually replace the B-1 Lancer bomber fleet and ultimately the B-2 Spirit fleet as well.
So the B-2's days are numbered eventually.
Eventually, yes, but it will likely operate alongside the B-52 and the first B-21s for some period, creating this overlap, this powerful mix of capabilities before it's fully retired. The B-21 just had its first public flight test recently, so it's becoming real.
So wrapping things up on the B-2 Spirit really stands as this incredible engineering achievement, doesn't it? A true cornerstone of U.S. strategic power for decades. That combination of stealth, range, and precision payload was, and in many ways still is, unmatched.
Absolutely. And while, yes, the small fleet and the high costs are significant challenges, its unique ability to penetrate contested airspace means it remains critically important until the B-21 is fully operational in numbers. You know, what's really fascinating is how the B-2 story just embodies this constant push-pull in military tech, the drive for ultimate capability versus the realities of cost and maintainability. It really pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible.
It certainly did. And maybe a final thought for our listeners. As air defense systems around the world continue to get more sophisticated, more networked, consider how that balance might shift again. How will designers weigh extreme stealth, like the B-2 or B-21, against payload, range, cost, and maybe even new factors like autonomy or swarming drones and shaping the future of long-range strike? It's a constantly evolving challenge.